Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Lee Wilmot. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, mate. I thought I was going to be ecstatic and really happy, and I'm still pretty happy. But yeah, the last knockings of the match last night, Wednesday night, if you're listening to it later than Thursday, just deflated me a little bit, but not too much. Yeah, we should say that you're stuck with me because Ali's not yet back from his exploits in Italy.
No, he's, I think, travelling back just about now from Udine. So, yeah, I'm sure Ali will be back on the podcast next week. So it's just the two of us today to talk about Tottenham's heartbreaking UEFA Super Cup final defeat against PSG. It all looks so good for Spurs, leading 2-0, courtesy of those goals from Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero, but a late PSG fight back, goals from Lee Kang-in and Gonzalo Ramos sent the game to extra time, to penalties even. and then it was PSG who prevailed in the end, 4-3 in the shootout. So with Thomas Frank, it being his first competitive game in charge of the club, we know from his time at Brentford that he has a number of different formations. He's not set in his ways. It's not one formation. We've seen 4-2-3-1 over the course of pre-season, but for the cup final, 3-5-2 formation, and it seemed to work very well for the vast majority of the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will have expected this from Thomas Frank. I think the kind of open, expansive football from Thomas Frank when you play perhaps a middle of the road or a lesser team. But he's set up that way, kind of a bit more defensive against a big team like PSG. And I think I was a bit concerned because obviously we played Bayern in a friendly and got tonked 4-0. And he set up in a more defensive way, trying to hit Bayern on the break. And I think we were expecting that again last night. And it was kind of similar to that last night, but so solid last night. So it's such a great kind of natural fit for all the players last night. Really solid in defence. They all knew what they were supposed to do. All knew when they were going to get forward, when they were going to kind of sit in and wait. And it certainly helped that PSG couldn't defend set pieces last night. That was a massive help to Spurs, obviously. But yeah, I was really impressed with how Spurs got on last night. I went into the game not expecting very much at all, given the result against Bayern and how good PSG are and have been for the last year. And it's one that I thought I just wanted to see how we set up and what the players gave to Thomas Frank really heading into the Premier League season. And then I was pleasantly surprised with the performance that we put in. And I thought we thoroughly deserved to win, if I'm honest. Yes, mitigating circumstances that PSG haven't played in about a month and they've only been back in training for about a week because of what happened in the Club World Cup. But yeah, really, really impressed by Spurs, really impressed by Thomas Frank's setup. And I think they made a lot of it on commentary about, there's so much more structure. We didn't see any of this from Spurs last year under Ange because everyone likes to talk about Ange and his kind of gung-ho approach and it's my way and I'm going to carry on playing my way, my attacking football. It was nice to see Spurs with a little bit of discipline and a little bit of solidity. It'd be interesting now to see how he plays against Burnley, a kind of a lesser team in the Premier League, and how attacking we go on Saturday. What did you make of last night's performance?
I thought Spurs were fantastic for, probably 90% of the game. It was just those last 10, 15 minutes when PSG started to come into it a lot more. And I think the substitutions hurt Spurs, their own substitutions. And I know a lot of fans have mentioned it, that the subs pretty much killed them at a time, because the likes of Dominic Solanke, Matisse Tell and Archie Gray didn't maybe offer what João Palhinha, Kudus and Richarlison did in the game time. But I think you've also got to look at the substitutions PSG made. When you can bring on players like Fabian Ruiz, Lee Kang-in, Gonzalo Ramos as well. And they had a huge influence on the game. And, I think it had been coming for quite a while. PSG were knocking at the door. I think Dembele had a shot that went wide. Bakul had a goal that was disallowed. And Spurs just needed to hold on for as long as they could without conceding. But unfortunately, it came a cracking finish as well from Lee. Hit that ball so cleanly into the bottom corner, and I think it's usually the case when you're 2-0 up and you concede, the next goal is going to come the way of the opposition, and that's what happened. Fantastic delivering from Dembele and really good header as well into the bottom corner. But I think looking at the 80 minutes before that, I think a lot of people probably went into the game expecting, Tottenham to get absolutely smashed, going on how well PSG did.
I was one of them.
Yeah, and then how well they performed in the Champions League final against Inter Milan, because that could have been 7 or 8 on the day in Munich, given the dominance. But they didn't really lay a glove on Spurs in an attacking sense. They got into some decent areas at times, but Vicaria didn't have much at all to do. And then Spurs, when they had their opportunities, took them with both hands. Richarlison, unlucky with that effort, that the keeper tips over the crossbar midway through the first half, and got the goal the performance deserved through Mickey van der Ven. And then Romero getting that header. Keeper should have done so much better on that header, though. Pretty much in the middle, 2 hands on the ball.
Yeah.
But Tottenham perspective, not complaining at all. And you think there and then, the way they're playing, they're going to win the trophy. But it's just those last 10 minutes. But so many positives to take out with the game despite the defeat.
I actually thought Romero was going to hit that across goal rather than going for goal himself. I thought he was going to go across where Sarr was completely unmarked, wasn't he? And at the back post going in from that header. But yeah, awful from Chevalier. But he did make an incredible save from Palhinha before Mickey van der Ven put the ball in the net for the first goal, didn't he? Just unbelievable how he got a reaction onto the crossbar. But unluckily for him, but luckily for us, van der Ven was there to tidy up and put the ball in the back of the net. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think in terms of the subs, Solanke needs minutes. So I think he needed to come on and needed to get some minutes. I think Tel needs minutes as well, given his exploits in the under-21 tournament over the summer. I think you could just tell before those substitutions, anything in and around the box, Spurs defenders, Spurs midfielders were just swarming around the PSG players, not giving them any time on the ball, blocking anything, throwing their body at anything that any shots that happened. And you saw then 5 minutes from time, Lee Kang in just on his own. No one went out to him. No one wanted to close him down. No one was around him. And yeah, it was a great strike, but he had all the time in the world to do that. And then as the defenders are clearly tiring, just Dembele getting in behind, didn't even need to look to see if he was onside because he knew the defence would be just a little bit behind him to make that run and get the cross in. And I think was it Danso, just wrong side of Ramos in the end for the header. But yeah, so many positives. I think we're going to talk about the players a lot, but Pat Matasar, outstanding last night. Kudus, first half, I think he went off the boil in the second half, Kudus, but first half, outstanding. You and me both love Richarlison. It's a good job Ali's not here. But he was absolutely superb last night. The hold-up play, bringing other players into the game, just keeping the ball, winning fouls. Unbelievable last night. I originally put him in my fantasy Premier League team thinking that Solanke wouldn't be fit. When I heard Solanke was going to be back last night, I thought I might have to change it. He's staying in there now, mate. Staying in there for Saturday. 100% Richarlison scoring against Burnley on Saturday.
Yeah, he needs to start after last night, but we will talk about the Burnley game towards the end of the podcast. But just on the formation that Thomas Frank decided on, he spoke about it after the game in his post-match press conference and basically said his decision came the day after the Bayern Munich defeat. He said it was a special operation. In medical terms, the operation succeeded, but the patient died. So not that good in the end, but we worked on the game plan that was a little bit different, and it was very close to succeeding. And I think he's bang on there in his assessment. It did work for the most part of the game, but like I said, it was just those 10 minutes or so. But prior to that, Spurs fantastic. And I think we got a bit of a glimpse of what a Thomas Frank Tottenham team's going to look like going forward. It's definitely going to change from game to game, as it was during his time at Brentford. Formation would be tailored to the opposition. I personally wouldn't go with a 3-5-2 against Burnley. I think that'll probably change, probably go more attacking. But what we saw in the game, long throws, something Tottenham gone to look at. Kevin Danso launching the ball in. He can throw it into the box.
He certainly can. It's one of those things, isn't it? There's I think there's a sticking point and a bit of snobbery sometimes around things like that, like kind of set pieces and long throws and doing stuff like Stoke would do back 15, 20 years ago. But I don't like to talk about those lot down the road too often, but just look at how many goals Arsenal score from corners, and how much emphasis they place on that. It might not be the prettiest thing. Everyone likes to see a Pep Guardiola style goal, don't they? Working from one end of the pitch to the other. It's nice football. It's great to watch. It's enjoyable. But every goal counts the same. So if you're going to get one from a long throw or you're going to get one from a corner, it's exactly the same as any pretty football you might play. And if it then gives you the opportunity to go 1-0 up and then bring the opposition onto you to then play a bit more pretty football, then there's nothing wrong with that. So, Kevin, it looked effortless from him as well at times, just like walking up and throwing it.
Yeah, he did. It'd be interesting to see if we get one around the halfway line. Just see how far he can launch.
Proper Rory Delap.
Yeah, or Dave Challoner back in the day.
Yes, yes. We're putting ourselves at the mercy of younger viewers and listeners, I think, with that one.
Yeah. But for me, I can't see why people would, look down the nose at that when that's a huge weapon and you just use it to your advantage. As you mentioned about Arsenal last season, scored a number of goals from set pieces. But for whatever reason, they were coming in for criticism, despite it paying off, which is just bizarre. And we can talk about Tottenham with the set pieces. 2 goals last night from set pieces. Set pieces were massive for Thomas Frank. Brentford, I think it's Andreas Georgeson now, who's one of the coaching staff who's coming in and looking over that. And first one, long kick from Guillermo Vicario. Romero wins a header. Van der Ven gets a header. Palhinha has a shot against the crossbar, and then Van der Ven's ready to tap it in. And then the second one, Pedro Porro whips in the delivery from midway inside the PSG half. Romero, for whatever reason, is all on his own. Shocking defensive play from PSG. And the keeper should do better. But Tottenham have profited from 2 set pieces. So I think that's what we've gone to see an awful lot of over the course of the season.
It was so strange that how badly they were defending, because you listen to the TNT commentary, and they're just making jokes. Darren Fletcher and Ali McQuish making jokes. Do you think this one's going to go around the back to Cristian Romero? And then the next one, do you think this one might go around the back to Cristian Romero? It was so simple. But really effective from Spurs, and great to see from Thomas Frank. It's weird, isn't it, that we've gone from an Ange Postecoglou who was asked a number of times about having a set piece coach, and not believing in it, but not thinking that it should become part of the whole process rather than having someone dedicated to doing it. And then our first game under a new manager, first competitive game under a new manager, and we scored 2 goals from a set piece, and everyone's talking about set pieces again. Yeah.
Right, let's get into some of those individual performances last night. So a number of standout displays. I know you want to wax lyrical about Pat Sarr.
Pat Sarr last night. He was everywhere. We're all concerned about this number 10 role. To give it to Pap. Brody could do it last night. Just let him do it for the whole season. I'll have fans writing on my back now saying, "Oh, Daniel Levy, stop him spending money," blah blah blah. But no, he was fabulous. I think everyone's concerned about that number 10 role, obviously, and we've got the likes of Sarr and Bergvall and Bissouma and Bentancur. I'll speak about Bentancur in a bit as well. But yeah, Sarr he looked like a man possessed, particularly in the second half. Was just all over the place in the best possible way, winning the ball back, getting Spurs higher up the pitch, just getting us on the front foot. Looks like he can play in that number 10 role for as long as we need him to, until we sign someone. We're going to talk about transfers in a bit, I think. But yeah, just incredible performance. I've always been a fan of his, but was never quite sure where he fitted in to the kind of the lineup, because I've always felt that Bentancur was a better option in a more defensive role. I've thought from the second half of last season that Bergvall is better off in there than Pat Matasar, and I always wondered where he was, and if he can take that number 10 by the scruff of the neck for the next couple of weeks at least before someone comes in, it's going to be a job for someone new coming into the setup to take it off him, I think.
Yeah, I think Andrew was asked about him previously. It might have been Ali who asked in the press conference about where Sarr's future will be in midfield. Will he be a 6, 8, 10? And I think Andrew said at the time, he can play anywhere. He's that good. And Thomas Frank quite clearly taken a real shine to him in pre-season.
Yeah, he's played a lot, hasn't he, under Frank so far?
Yeah, he praised him after the Arsenal game in Hong Kong when he scored that brilliant goal. He scored, he got 2, didn't he, against Wickham in the behind closed door game, Hotspur away. And we've seen it from him during his time at Spurs that, he's got a real knack of getting on the score sheet. Last season, I think his levels did fluctuate at times, but that's understandable given his age. I think he had a really good period probably around October, November time. And then, obviously, you can't forget what happened in May. He was the player who whipped in the ball for Brennan Johnson to score in the Europa League final. And Thomas Frank has this history of taking players to a new, different level, extracting the very best out of them. And I think it's quite clear to see Pat Matasar can be a major player for Thomas Frank, and he can bring out the best in him. And I agree with you, it was just full of energy last night. It was all over the pitch. You know what you're going to get from him. And I think he was quite clearly disappointed to come off. I know he came off, around 90 minutes. Only a few minutes left in that game, but in those, last few seconds, Tottenham really did miss him. Just that energy, just putting his body about. But no, he was a really, really good player last night for Spurs.
I've got a question. Everyone's obviously excited by the second half of the season that Bergvall had last year. Should Spurs fans be concerned about not perhaps seeing him as much this year, given Bentancur was name checked when Thomas Frank first came in and outstanding also last night, I thought. Palhinha has been brought in to be the kind of the destroyer in that number 6 role. And if Sarr's going to be kind of this all-action hero that Thomas Frank sees him as, do we think Bergvall's opportunities might be a little bit more limited this year? I know we've got more games, we've got Champions League to think about as well, but not concerned because he's only 19. But is there a chance perhaps that we could stunt his development a little bit after what happened last year?
I wouldn't be too worried about that. At the end of the day, it's a squad game. That was evident last season. Tottenham needed a big squad. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to play across the season. I think looking at the midfield, you'd think it's going to be Bentancur and Palhinha in there. But because Frank's so flexible, there might be 3 midfielders at the time, whatever. But I think probably Sarr looks to be ahead of Bergvall at the moment. But his first competitive game of the season can all change on Saturday against Burnley. So I certainly wouldn't be worried about Bergvall, who obviously has, just been coming back from an injury that ended this season and saw him miss the Europa League final. But no doubts whatsoever, he's going to be a big, big player for Spurs once again this year.
Yeah. Do you want to start talking about Richarlison? I've already mentioned him earlier on, but go on, tell us all about Richarlison last night.
We just got to dedicate this rest of the podcast to
why not? Yeah,
fantastic last night. Reminded me of his performance in the Europa League final. I think there were probably question marks over Richie going into that final, given his fitness issues and sometimes his performances for Spurs. But he displayed on that night why he was put into the team, because he had such a, influence going forward, just winning free kicks, putting himself about, his incredible work rate that the managers love. And that was clear to see last night. No surprise that he came off in the final 20 minutes, given maybe his lack of football at times, his injuries. But what he offered in those first 70 minutes, Spurs lacked in those last 20 minutes. He was the ideal player Spurs needed on the pitch for those 5-10 minutes at the end to help see the game out. Just someone to try and hold the ball up, just win those free kicks, alleviate the pressure that was building. That's what Spurs missed. And then, as you pointed out, Solanke just coming back from an injury. He's only played once in pre-season so far. So that was no shock that he didn't start, and it's about building his fitness up. And for me, Richarlison, is an undroppable for the Burnley game now on Saturday. I think he has to start. And I think last night proved how big a player he can be for the football club. There's always question marks over him because in his 3 seasons at the club so far, injuries have hit him so hard. He's not been able to get a really good, consistent run together. And yeah, it's no surprise why some fans may say, yeah, we'll let him go in the summer. We'll bring in someone else who, is consistent with the game time, who is available. But Richarlison displayed last night why, he should be, a key player under Thomas Frank going forward.
You look at the kind of the PSG back line that was so good in the Champions League last year, and they all played Hakimi, Marquinhos, Pacho, and Nuno Mendes. They're the mainstay of the defence, and he won everything. They didn't get a moment's peace from Richarlison last night. I don't remember very many occasions where he didn't win the first ball. They got there first, or they beat him to the ball. And I think sometimes a lot of the criticism from Richarlison is that he can be a little bit weak sometimes when he's got the ball and when he's like on the turn, or when he wants to kind of come back and make a pass or turn things around the corner. Not last night. It was so strong on the ball last night. Held the ball up brilliantly. No one was taking that ball off him, and played others into possession expertly. Really, really impressed. Really impressed with him.
And Kudus as well, playing up top with him in the 3-5-2. He's been excellent over the course of pre-season. Yes, he didn't have the best of seasons at West Ham last year. His goals and assist rate dropped from the previous year because he was brilliant in his first year at the London Stadium after moving from Ajax. But what we've seen from him pre-season, he's going to be such a tough player for the opposition to come up against, because the trickery, his pace is just so unpredictable at times. And I thought he linked up really, really well with Richarlison at times. And he's versatile. He gives Thomas Frank plenty of options, whether he wants to go with a front two, whether he wants to play him on the right-hand side, the left-hand side, or even as an attacking midfield. And I think he's going to be a big asset for Spurs going forward. He did look a bit knackered at times during the games, but he put in, a big shift, and, credit to him in the end. I think he's a player Tottenham fans are really going to like this season.
That one moment with Pacho, when he was it Bentancur maybe tried to play a through ball to him, and he was clearly second best, and just shouldered Pacho off the ball, got control of the ball, and then shielded it and kept Pacho behind him, and then played. I can't remember who he played in after that, but just outstanding.
He went close with that header as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
What hit the post on the cusp of half time as well. So yeah. He was
offside flag was up, I think, wasn't it? So it'd be interesting to see if that was actually given as offside by the VAR or not. But they didn't show a replay after that. I didn't see it afterwards. No. So, but yeah, another good performance. It was just a match full of good performances from Spurs, wasn't it? We've kind of spoken about Sarr and Richarlison and Kudus there, and then we've got Palhinha. And I thought everyone who's listened to a podcast that I've been on with you guys before knows I absolutely adore Rodrigo Bentancur. And I thought he was excellent last night as well. But him and Palhinha together, there's kind of a sign of things to come, I think, from those two in those two holding midfield roles.
Yeah, he's a brilliant player. Palhinha displayed that in his 2 years at Fulham. And he, for me, probably could be Tottenham's signing of the summer. I know there's all the talk of a potential move for Eze and Savinho from Man City at the moment, but to get Palhinha on loan with an option to buy, if he can replicate the form he showed at Fulham, he can be huge for Tottenham. He can be such a game changer in the midfield, because Spurs have been crying out for a number 6 over the past few years. It's just not quite worked for them in that position with certain players, but he just provides a shield in front of the back line. He wins the ball, breaks up play, gets the team moving forward, and his absence was felt massively in those final 20 minutes just because of what he was offering. And did you see him on the touchline at the edge of the technical area towards the end of the game? That's his leadership qualities, his experience, just trying to help his new teammates get over the line. But yeah, he was fantastic last night. Really, really good.
Yeah, nothing against Archie Gray or anything like that, but it kind of did feel like once he'd gone off, Bentancur felt like he was having to do everything in that midfield. Perhaps not kind of got that kind of that leadership to tell Archie what to do or tell him where to go, and kind of maybe left Archie Gray to his own devices, and that kind of led to kind of a little bit of a downturn and stepping off the gas a little bit. But yeah, Palhinha, he's looked like a man against Bayern who hadn't played many minutes, but it's only taken another few days, another week, another game for him to look like he's perfectly at home in that midfield again already.
Yeah. Right, we're halfway through the podcast now, so Lee's gone to tell us about the benefits of using NordVPN today, so big shoes to fill.
I'll apologise in advance. I'm never as good as Ali at this, am I? He gets more opportunity to test out Nord than I do. All these trips he goes with Spurs.
True.
Yeah. But yes, you should all be aware by now that the Golden Guest Talk Tottenham podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can use their service in a host of different ways to enhance your internet experience. And I'm sure Ali has been doing so in the last couple of days in Udine in Italy. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, and that means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favourite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. Watching sporting events or films on your favourite TV shows could not be easier. All you have to do is set your virtual location to a country that is showing it. Not only that, but the outlay on the NordVPN subscription is cheaper for you in the long run, and that's because you can purchase streaming services in other countries at a much cheaper rate. Security-wise, it's a great system for protecting your private data like bank details, passwords, and your online identity too. You can also switch your virtual location to book flights, hotels, and subscriptions from other countries at a much cheaper rate, something Ali has most likely done while he's in Italy covering the Super Cup. I know he can't go too long without watching Netflix or watching a film, so I'm sure he's been doing that in the spare time while he's been out there. NordVPN is such a clever app that you can install on any device, and it's so easy to set up. There's a whole host of other benefits from signing up, so why not give it a go? To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in our episode description box.
Let's talk about the penalty shootout that followed then, as we've already discussed, the 2 goals Tottenham conceded. It looked so good for Spurs, didn't it, when Vitinha missed that penalty?
What a stupid run-up, by the way.
I know. Literally a step at a time, so slow. And you're just waiting for, the ball to hit the back of the net when the keeper goes the wrong way. And exactly the same for Matisse Tell's penalty. And yeah, both wide in the end.
Yes, shock. Yeah. Run-up was one of the worst things I've ever seen. I think I've seen him do it before, but I'd obviously forgotten. Just watching him do that again, I'm like, oh, he's looking at the watch. Is he going to get there, or is the game going to fit? The light's going to go out before he gets to the ball. Yeah, really, really good start. Do you know what? For me, the interesting thing, Vicario was going the same way for every penalty when it was a right footer, and then when it was a left footer, he went the other way. And then they went the way that he was diving before. It's like I assumed he was just expecting them to go the way you hook a penalty. I'm right-footed, so you go into the kind of, you whip that way rather than going that way across the keeper, don't you? So I think he was expecting every one of them to do that, and they didn't. None of them did it. And then it looked kind of silly for him going the wrong way for every single one. Yeah. Shootout, it's a lottery most of the time. I think there were so many tired legs out there. Van der Ven just didn't put it enough in the corner, didn't put it high enough. It was quite well struck, but it was too close to the goalkeeper. Matisse Tell, again, like Vitinha, slow run up and then put it wide. It was waiting for the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper did move. It kind of almost felt like one of those, he could have just passed it into the net really slowly and it would have got there. Just whipped it too much. Yeah, not much more you can say about the penalties, is there?
No, not really. I thought there were some really good ones. Solanke, Bentancur, Porros were good, and then the PSG ones, Nuno Mendes, he's done that a few times now, just finding the top corner. But the unfortunate thing with it is there's always someone who, misses a penalty and unfortunately becomes the villain. And This case, it's Matisse Tell, who on social media has received quite a bit of racial abuse in wake of the penalty shootout defeat. Not on at all what's come Tell's way over the past 12 hours or so. And Tottenham put out a statement this morning basically saying they're disgusted at the racial abuse that Matisse has received on social media. Following last night's UEFA Super Cup defeats, Matisse showed bravery and courage to step forward and take a penalty, yet those who abuse him are nothing but cowards, hiding behind anonymous usernames and profiles to spout their abhorrent views. We will work with the authorities and social media platforms to take the strongest possible action against any individual we are able to identify. We stand with you, Matisse. I mean, we've seen this time and time again, and it's just something you just don't seem to be able to cut out at all on social media.
I don't know when it's going to change. The social media companies, for me, just don't do enough and don't have enough guidelines and kind of restrictions there and kind of sanctions for people that do this, because it just, as you say, it happens time and time again. And yeah, this disgusted is the only word for it, really. I don't understand. I sound like an old man, but I don't understand in this day and age why it still happens, why people still feel the need to bring someone's skin color into any kind of anything they say to someone. If you want to have a go at someone for missing a penalty and call him rubbish, you're well within your rights to do that. That's fine, but don't bring race or anything like that into it. There's absolutely no need for it, and the social media companies have to step up at some point. I don't know when they're going to do it. They need to step up some point and kind of bring an end to this, because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, for that to be first thought after the game as well, and to actually send a message to the player, just so wrong. And a number of Tottenham players, back Matisse and Mickey van der Ven for missing those penalties. I think Kevin Danso mentioned
he's 19 years old.
I know. Courage to him for stepping up. He's done it before for Spurs, scored a penalty against Southampton, but on this occasion he missed. And yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate things in the end. I think Dominic Solanke took to his Instagram stories and basically quote tweeted or whatever Tottenham's post about the statement. He's just questioned, like, when's this stuff ever going to end?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, really. Right, we'll move on from that now. And what Thomas Frank said after the game, said very, very proud of the players, the team, club, the fans. I think the players gave everything, playing against one of the best teams in the world, maybe the best at the moment. I think we were 75, 80 minutes perfect, almost giving nothing away against. They had 4 players with unbelievable individual quality on the pitch. So very, very proud of them. I think that would be the opinion from all Tottenham fans, really. They were brilliant for those 80, 85 minutes last night, and just so unlucky in the end.
Yeah, I think I tweeted after the game last night that I wasn't massively bothered about the game going into it, because I thought we'd probably lose. And at the end of the day, I know it's a trophy, but it is a friendly for all intents and purposes. It's one game between 2 teams that have won a competition 3 or 4 months ago.
It's so glorified friendly. It's like the
like the Community Shield,
or Charity Shield in old money.
Yeah, exactly that. Again, we're showing our age, Guesty. It's not good for us. So I wasn't massively bothered. Just wanted to see us put in a good performance and see what we could expect and for the season to come. Then to get to 85 minutes, 2-0 up against PSG, and then to lose it, I was quite gutted afterwards. It would have been nice. I would have been changing my tune. No, it's not a friendly. Look at this trophy we've got. Isn't this nice? So yeah, I was a bit gutted, but as you say, as Thomas Frank has said, they're absolutely proud of the players. Massive effort they put in to take PSG all the way, and in my opinion, deserved to win the game. I think probably a lot of people would have said Spurs deserved to win that game and come away with a trophy. So, yeah, massive credit to the players, massive credit to Thomas Frank, and it's got me excited for Saturday, which is probably the main thing for the Spurs supporters. Because if we'd gone and lost that 3 or 4-0, is anyone looking forward to Saturday against Burnley? Probably not.
Yeah, I think that very much is the case now. That everyone's, just wants to see Thomas Frank's Tottenham team in Premier League action. done it against PSG now, played extremely well. Now let's see what they do against Burnley in the Premier League, because it's always going to be different with Thomas Frank in terms of the formation. We mentioned that at the start of the podcast, 3-5-2 last night. Would you be going with that again? Or would
Not
you
against
get
not
that
against
extra
Burnley, I don't
attacking
think.
player in?
Yeah, I think I'd probably go back to Thomas Frank's kind of tried and tested 4-2-3-1 against Burnley. He gets the 4 players moving forward in behind Richarlison. So you probably move Kudus to one side, get Sarr probably plays in that 10 role, and then it's who plays on the left. No Wilson Odobert last night. So is it going to be Matisse Tell? Is it going to be Odobert? Is it going to be someone else out there? But I'd go that more attacking. I think I'd get an extra body moving forward. I think Palhinha and Bentancur will probably sit in those 2 roles. And then if we want to kind of make it even more attacking as the game wears on, you've got the likes of Bergvall that can come on and be a bit more attacking. You've got Archie Gray who can potentially be a bit more attacking. You can even push Bentancur further forward and say to Palhinha, just sit there on your own. So looking forward to it. I knew I was coming on the podcast today because Ali's in Italy, and I was already at 83 minutes last night thinking they're coming on going, we're going to win it all. What a brilliant performance. We're going to win everything this year. They just brought me down a little notch, PSG.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think it's got to be 4-2-3-1 against Burnley. I think you need that extra attacking player in there. Burnley was so good defensively last season in the Championship. I can't remember how many they conceded in the end, but it was extremely low. The amount of clean sheets they got. Obviously, it's going to be very different in the Premier League for them this season, but they've got that stability at the back, and they'll certainly be confident going into games of keeping teams shut. So I think you need that extra attacking player in there. I was really surprised Brennan Johnson didn't get on last night because he was, a constant in the Tottenham team last season and the year before. He's another option on the left. I don't know whether you start Wilson Odobert. He seems to do okay in some pre-season games, especially the Arsenal one, caused Ben White some problems. Or do you just give a massive show of faith in Matisse Tell and just tell him, we believe in you, we're starting you, you go on and win this game, put Wednesday night behind you.
Yeah.
There's options there for Thomas Frank, and I think that's certainly a good thing, but I'd be going with Richarlison over Solanke up front. I think you just need to build Solanke's minutes up for now. Kudus on the right, Sarr in the number 10 role, and then maybe Odobert on the left.
The interesting thing, Brennan Johnson last night, there was one clip I saw him. It was behind. He was behind in the background behind Thomas Frank as the camera went on to him, and I think it was after. Was it Palhinha or Bentancur played a nice through ball into Jed Spence's run, and he knocked Hakimi off the ball, managed to get there first, and then if he'd got his head up like immediately when he got on the ball, Pedro Porro was racing into the area. He could have got that ball straight across the box for Pedro Porro and probably would have scored. Won a corner in the end, and no one kind of looks back at it, but I think the camera went to Frank then, and you could see Brennan Johnson in the background, which is exactly where he would be. And he was had a smile on his face, clapping his hands. And I thought it was quite nice to see, given that he wasn't starting, that he was kind of that team spirit is still there, and he's still kind of on. It might change if he doesn't get many minutes in the next few weeks, but that team spirit was still there and still kind of clapping what the work that the players were putting in.
Yeah. We've just mentioned the team for Burnley in an attacking sense. Tottenham fans will be keeping their fingers crossed that a new attacking addition comes in, ideally before the Burnley game, but for the incoming player, they will have to be registered by midday on Friday to be involved on Saturday. The 2 players in question at the moment, Eberechi Eze of Crystal Palace, who all Tottenham fans want. You can quite clearly see why. The incredible performances he's been putting in for Crystal Palace over the past few years. Such a surprise that he's still at Selhurst Park, to be honest, given the levels that he produces week in, week out. England international now. So I think that's one where Spurs are just going to have to, submit that bid, try and get that moving and get it over the line. And then there's Savinho as well from Manchester City, who is of interest to the club. Talks started earlier in the week. Seems to have gone a bit quiet with Savinho over the past few days. I think you mentioned before, City looking at around 67 million for him. a player who cost 31 million 12 months ago after signing from Troyes in France. You a fan of Savinho?
Was he even that good in one season for Man City to warrant a doubling of his price tag?
Probably not. I thought he had a decent first season in the Premier League. I think it was 3 goals, 13 assists in total. He started the vast majority of his performances of his games for City. Very like Riyad Mahrez in the way he moves on the ball. I think it could be a really, really good signing, but not for the money City are after.
No, 13 assists isn't bad actually, is it? It's, I wasn't aware of that, so yeah, that's not too bad, not to be sniffed at. Personally, well, as all Tottenham fans would say, well, Daniel Levy should go and spend money and buy both of them. Personally, I'd pick Eze over Savinho. I think we need Eze more than we do Savinho. And yeah, you mentioned it. How many windows have we been linked with Eberechi Eze? Even before he was at Palace, we were linked with him when he was at QPR. We've done a few stories. So I think we reported back in July that it was unlikely that Spurs were going to sign or make a move for him. We think that was because they were in kind of those advanced negotiations to bring in Morgan Gibbs-White, and why would you bring both of them in? So that would be a reason why it was unlikely. Since that ridiculous debacle ended, Spurs have had to look elsewhere. I'm a massive fan of Eze. He can play anywhere across that kind of that front line. Well, perhaps not in the central striker role, but anywhere in the kind of support roles in the front line, and can probably play in a more defensive midfield position as well. Can probably sit in there in the midfield and not be one right in front of the defence, but can kind of be just a central midfielder without having to do the kind of the work going forward as much. I think, yeah, versatility. He's a quality player, as you say, England regular, 27 years old now, got a good few years ahead of him. 60-something million pounds. No brainer for me, really. We need someone in that role, and he is outstanding quality. So yeah, go and get it done, Daniel, and get it done before transfer deadline day, because everything that's happening at the minute. Mark Gay's been linked with Liverpool, has obviously been linked with Spurs in the past as well, and Thomas Frank does want a centre back. I think if that all gets left to the last moment, it kind of puts Palace in a really difficult position, doesn't it, when you lose your two best players right towards the end. So I know Tottenham and the Tottenham hierarchy won't be thinking about what it means for Palace. It's only what it means for Spurs. You have to be selfish, but I think we need to get it done sooner rather than later, really. But from our perspective and from Palace's perspective.
Yeah, but we know what Tottenham are like in the transfer windows. Because, I mean, go back to the January transfer window. Matisse Tell didn't look like he was going to be going to Spurs. He'd be staying at Bayern Munich. Then that happened really quick. Yeah. Danzo as well. So Spurs do have a history of, moving late in the window, but this year they've got to be moving early because they've quite clearly not done enough in the market so far, whereas the rivals have.
The thing for me is that getting it done quickly is Arsenal have been heavily linked with Eze, but everything we're hearing is that they're interested in him, but it's not a priority right now because of the money they've spent, and Ethan Nwaneri's contract renewal has meant it's not been that much of a priority. If Arsenal get a few players out and raise some funds, you can bet your bottom dollar it'll be a priority then. So no one wants to lose a player to Arsenal. So go and get it done. Go and pay the money and get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it would be a statement signing as well. No doubt about it. He's that good. Right, let's finish with our season predictions then in the world of Tottenham. Big year coming up for the football club after finishing 17th last year. Got to get moving up the Premier League table and then hopefully look to build on that Europa League final triumph. Spurs back in the Champions League. They will discover their opponents 2 weeks today when the draw is made in Switzerland. Same format as last year. There's going to be 8 league phase games, and you'd be hoping Spurs can make it through to that knockout stage. There's FA Cup and Carabao Cup coming up as ever. So what are you expecting from Spurs? You did mention you were going to say they were going to win it all. They're going to beat PSG, but things have changed since then.
Yeah, slightly changed. Well, things can't be much worse in the Premier League, can they? So I will confidently predict we'll be better in the Premier League than we were last season. Do you know what? I think, as reluctant as I am to say it, I think the 4 teams at the top have done such good business this summer and are probably just a little bit ahead of everyone else in the Premier League. I'm talking Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, and Chelsea. I think those 4. I think it's going to be difficult for any team to usurp one of those. I think to get in the top 4, it'll come down to how clubs do in Europe, how we do in Europe in the Premier League this year, as to whether we get a 5th spot again for the Champions League. But I think 5th spot is absolutely up for grabs for Spurs in comparison to the rest of the teams in the league. I think I'd be really happy if we finish 5th this season, given 17th last season. If we were to push those 4 and kind of try and get in there ahead of one of them, that'd be amazing. But I think 5th is what we should be aiming for. I'll probably get pelters in the comments from Spurs fans saying I'm not being optimistic enough, but I think 5th is what we should be aiming for. Whether we're good enough to finish in the top 8 of the Champions League or not, time will tell. I think in the first few weeks of the Champions League campaign, you've got to think we're good enough to finish in the top 24 to get into a playoff round and then into the knockout stages, and then it's anyone's after that. 2 legs against another team, you never know what can happen. And yeah, I think I'm going to predict us to win the Carabao Cup this year. I think we've broken the trophy duck, so let's have another one this year. The Carabao Cup, 5th place, and last 16 quarterfinals of the Champions League. I'll be quite happy with that. I think. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think that'd be a decent season. I agree with you in terms of the top 4 in the Premier League. I think they've done fantastic business. I think it'd probably be a 4-horse race in terms of the title. I think Newcastle will probably drop away a bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with Isak looking likely to be on the move. I don't think Villa will be as strong. I think they need to do a bit more in the transfer window. And I think Forest will drop away, especially with European football. So I think there's a chance for Spurs, if they can make big strides under Thomas Frank, to finish 5th. I'd probably say top 7 finish for Tottenham. Champions League, all going to be dependent on those fixtures in the league phase, because you're coming up against quality teams from either pot now, with 2 teams in there. If they can't make in the top 8, you'd still fancy the chances of making the knockout round. But again, that's all going to come down to who they'd play in those games in February. Carabao Cup, I think City need to win something after last year. City have a history of winning the Carabao Cup. Yeah. So I think they'd win that. And then FA Cup, I don't think Spurs will win it, but you'd like to think they'll have a good run in the cup competitions. Fingers crossed, it is a bit of a snowball effect in terms of winning the Europa League trophy last year, and then the trophies do follow, because that's what happened to Chelsea 20 years ago when they won the Carabao Cup for the first time, when Jose Mourinho was manager. Yeah, I think it should be a good season for Spurs, but it's all going to be dependent on bringing in these players.
Yep.
And, getting the team moving forward, because last season, 17th, unacceptable.
Yeah, if we can end the transfer window well with a couple more signings, that Thomas Frank desperately wants, then who knows? But if we leave it till deadline day and there's already 3 fixtures gone by then, hopefully 3 positive results, but you never know. It doesn't matter so much, but yeah, we need to strengthen. We've not done enough in the transfer window yet. Considering it started so well and so positively with Kudus coming in so quickly, you thought it was going to kind of go on from there, and we'd have the sort of window that the likes of Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal have had. But it's just not quite happened yet. But yeah, I'm optimistic. Last night was great fun, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the game on Saturday.
Yeah, plenty of positives to take from the PSG game, even though it ended in defeat ultimately. So I think everyone's just looking forward now to the new Premier League season, which has come around pretty quickly.
It always does, doesn't it?
It does. So
again, we're sounding old. Oh, doesn't it come around quick?
So that's the end of today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. We'll be back next week to reflect on the Burnley game and then look ahead to a tricky trip to Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. So in the meantime, keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.